Well, our top story: the test of a new vehicle that flies at 6 times the speed of sound. If further developed, this could end up being the world's fastest cruise missile.
3, 2, 1. Now +1, +2, and counting up.
With this launch, India has announced that it's at the forefront of cutting-edge hypersonic engine technology only mastered by the US so far. The rocket you see flew to a speed of 6 times the speed of sound, released a demonstrator cruise vehicle which activated its own engine called a scramjet and continued to fly at a speed of nearly 2 kilometers a second for more than 20 seconds. If this cruise vehicle is converted into a hypersonic weapon system in the future, it will be able to defeat any known Chinese defensive systems because of its ability to maneuver at extreme speeds. All of this technology is entirely homegrown, and the launch itself, after a partial failure of its first attempt, has been dubbed textbook. Vishnu Shom for NDTV. Well, joining us now, Sameer Joshi, Aerospace and Defence Analyst, Vipin Narang, Associate Professor at MIT, Ravi Gupta, former scientist at the DRDO, and Brahma Chalani, Strategic Affairs Expert. Vipin, let me come to you first. What does this test mean?
For having me. Hi to the rest of the panel. I mean, a hypersonic glide vehicle, especially scramjet technology, it's really cool technology. It's air breathing and can, as you noted, can fly at around Mach 6, Mach 7. This is an initial test which validated the fuel injection and the air intake when the hypersonic glide vehicle separated from what looks like, I think, an Agni booster, which was a solid fuel motor that launched it up into 30 kilometers into the endo-atmosphere. And so there's still a ways to go, but it allows a state to use a hypersonic glide vehicle as a warhead, which can maneuver and defeat missile defenses, or as you noted, as a cruise missile. I do have to say, in terms of priorities, China and Pakistan are not developing and have not invested in missile defenses that can defeat India's ballistic missile warheads, which actually go faster than the hypersonic glide vehicle. I mean, an incoming re-entry vehicle from a ballistic missile is still, 3 or 4 times faster than a hypersonic glide vehicle, but it can't maneuver. So the maneuverability is really the key feature of a hypersonic glide vehicle at high speeds. And so this down the road will give India some capability, but at the risk of not being invited back on the show or saying something unpopular, the fight with China right now is in Ladakh and on the LAC. And while this may be a long-term technology that India needs, it's not really the requirement that India needs today. I mean, the DRDO needs to be working on conventional capability. And one point that is often overlooked is that no state has become a major power without being able to develop its own conventional military capabilities. And there's a lot of interest in this particular technology, but I think in the near term, DRDO needs to focus on some more of the conventional platforms that will help the Indian military in the conflicts that it faces today.
Okay. Sameer, your take on the technology which has been tested today, particularly how, in a sense, this is more advanced than a ballistic missile because it maneuvers. In other words, it cannot be defeated, at least not with present technology which exists in China or Pakistan.
Yeah, thanks, Vishnu. So just before I answer your main question, I'll just comment on what Vipin just said. While he's strategically right in saying that India should be concentrating on a lot of other tech, which is conventionally required, I'll say that asymmetric technologies like the hypersonic weapons and other technologies also need to be developed in tangent. Basically, this is what will give you an edge when the scale and the scope of the war opens up a little bit more. And the nations in the world respect you more when you have technologies like this in hand. Okay, so a hypersonic missile, basically, vis-a-vis a more conventional ballistic missile, MIRV or a maneuverable re-entry vehicle warhead, it has 2 advantages. First is it maintains a basic low trajectory in the sense that it does not go to 100 kilometers plus like a ballistic missile goes. It maintains about 100,000 feet, about 30 odd kilometers, basically because one, it requires oxygen for its scramjets, and secondly, it can generate lift from the low density air there. That is the whole advantage of a hypersonic vehicle. There may be different kind of vehicles, but primarily they're boost glide vehicles which utilize scramjet. India tested a scramjet vehicle today. The biggest advantage of a scramjet, if India works on this technology towards military purposes, giving a lot of headache for the air defense and the air defense complexes around the world. If we talk specifically of China, the advantage that any boost glide vehicle will have against a Chinese class of air defense vehicle is that one, it will be detected late because the trajectory is not a ballistic parabolic trajectory. Right. It is still a very flattish trajectory. So that, and traveling at speeds of Mach 6, or even more, the Russian Avangard goes at Mach 27. It gives a lot of headache to the tracking radars, which will pick up somewhere beyond the mid-course rather than the terminal phase. The reaction time is very less, and more important than not, you may not have the right kind of interceptors to take them down.
Right.
So it does add a lot of headache for the terminal defenses or the anti-ballistic missile defenses. And practically China does not have any anti-ballistic missile shield presently in place. It still relies on the S-400, which is the best missile that the Chinese have.
Okay. Brahmachalani, again, in terms of this tech race, I think one of the most impressive aspects of this is that this is entirely homegrown tech. You can't just go and buy it. So there's a lot that's been proven. Metallurgy for a start, the scramjet motor, getting it to the right altitude, the shields separating properly, and then this firing for 20 seconds, which in a test configuration wasn't bad for a speed of 2 meters per second. Isn't that perhaps the most impressive part of this, that this is all Indian technology?
Precisely. No country will sell strategic weapons to India. India has to build these weapons at home, and strategic weapons are central to deterrence. And India's test of a hypersonic platform is an important milestone in its quest to secure itself. But to respond to what Vipin was saying earlier about China, China has muscled into Indian territories in Ladakh without firing a single shot. It has achieved its objectives below the threshold of armed conflict. So deterring Chinese encroachments doesn't demand conventional power. It demands effective patrolling of the frontier. India was caught off guard by the Chinese incursions. So focusing on building conventional power will keep India poor, insecure, and import dependent. India has been one of the largest importers of conventional weapons for years, but that hasn't made it more secure. India has to put the focus on strategic weapons. If you look at the last year's test of an anti-satellite weapon, that test was delayed by several years because Prime Minister Manmohan Singh's government declined to give scientists the go-ahead. That was a serious mistake. So also was India's failure to develop a nuclear weapons capability after the 1974 nuclear test. India waited almost a quarter century before conducting nuclear weapon tests. So I'm glad that at least the hypersonic platform test was done as soon as the capability was ready to be demonstrated by testing.
Okay. Ravi Gupta, what next as far as this technology is concerned?
See, I see it as a technology demonstrator. It is a technology demonstrator. Now, obviously, the next step should be, I don't know what actually will be, but should be weaponizing it. Of course, it is not that we will be doing tomorrow. From this stage to a practical, usable vehicle, it will take some time. How much time will depend upon how much fast the nation wants it. As the very good example has been given by Dr. Brahmachalani, we could have done the anti-satellite test long ago. It was the political decision that when do you want it. So if we want it fast, yes, it can be speeded up. We have to put in more resources. But today's test has proven a large number of technologies, which we have been developing for quite long time, and they were being tested independently. Now, for the first time, they have been all put together. There was another test carried out earlier, which was, you can say, in part, some of the things were tested there also, but So today's test, all those things which is required to make a hypersonic vehicle have been tested. The logical next step is to go ahead, revalidate these technologies with some more tests, collect more data. After all, in such, whether it is the Agni series or whether it is anti-satellite weapon or it is the ballistic missile defense systems, your reliability comes with the data.
Right.
So we have to generate more data, at the same time design the usable systems, weaponize them, and that adds to the deterrence value.
All right. Well,
So
a big path ahead, but it's an impressive technology demonstrator, this. And it sort of indicates that India very much at that cutting edge. What we choose to do with this technology, that really depends on a political decision. I'd like to thank all of you very much for joining us. It's a very interesting development, and I think this test caught a lot of us off guard. Didn't expect this to happen so soon. Thanks very much indeed.